Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Avila and I will be doing my presentation on the controversy of embryonic stem cell research. With embryonic stem cell research, there's a lot of hope for treatments for incurable illnesses, but on the other hand, it raises a lot of ethical and political controversies because of the fact that it involves the destruction of a human embryo. So, some background on how the research actually is conducted. So the embryos are taken from a process called in vitro fertilization. This is the process used by parents who cannot conceive a child the natural way, so they undergo this process. First, the egg cells are surgically removed from the mother's ovaries. Then, sperm from the father is used to fertilize each egg, which would create many zygotes. These zygotes then grow into blastocysts, and then of all of the blastocysts created, only some are implanted into the mother's uterus. They do more than one just so there can be a better chance of one actually growing. Once the mother gets pregnant, the rest of the blastocysts that are left over usually get destroyed. This is when the parents or the mother have a chance to decide whether they want to donate the remaining embryos for medical research purposes, whether they want to donate them to another couple, or whether they just want them to be destroyed and get treated as medical waste. The stakeholders in this situation would be the woman or the couple who are donating the embryo if they decide to donate the embryo, also researchers and scientists who are conducting the research, and the individuals who would have any individual with an incurable illness can also be a stakeholder because they might benefit from the research. Why does embryonic stem cell research matter? It's really important because there's so many people who can benefit from this research. An example of the people with incurable illnesses would be people who have Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, type 1 diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease. These can just be some examples, but just with these people, that would total about 41 million people in the United States who would benefit from this research. Another reason why it's important is because embryonic stem cells have the ability to grow into any specific cell. Adult stem cells, on the other hand, can only be a specific type of cell, for example, a liver cell or bone marrow stem cell, but embryonic stem cells have the ability to grow and replace any damaged cell, not just a specific cell. This is my thesis statement. Although some oppose research that uses embryonic stem cells harvested from blastocysts through the in vitro fertilization process, this research may lead to treatments for incurable illnesses, benefiting so many that the use of human tissue can be justified. Embryonic stem cell research does satisfy the ethical principle of autonomy because the parents who undergo this infertility treatment, they get to decide whether or not they want to donate their remaining embryos to be researched or whether or not they want them to be destroyed. If the parents decide to donate it for medical research purposes, that is completely up to them. They get all the information necessary for them to make their decision. They know what the research will look like, and they get to make the decision. Nobody's going against their wishes. I also talked about beneficence because the blastocysts that are left over after the infertility treatment are not going to ever have the chance to become a human being because they're never going to be implanted into a woman's uterus. So they're either going to be destroyed or they can be used to save others' lives. Yes, they're still going to be destroyed, but this way there's benefit to many people, whereas the alternative, they're going to be destroyed and not used for anything at all. The couple has already decided to either donate them for medical research or to have them destroyed, so either way, they're not going to become a human being. Justice also applies here because another goal of embryonic stem cell research is to be more affordable and more attainable for the entire population who would need treatments from the research. Laws, codes, and duties. There were some funding restrictions placed on embryonic stem cell research. They were placed by the George W. Bush administration. This meant that not a lot of embryonic stem cell research could be carried out with all the restrictions. However, in March of 2009, there was an executive order passed, which was Order 13505, which removed all the funding restrictions that were set in place, and this then allowed for there to be more embryonic stem cell research. Later on, there was also a lawsuit which hoped to remove Executive Order 13505, but the Supreme Court decided to not even hear the case, so embryonic stem cell research was still allowed to be carried out because the restrictions were not set in place again, since the Supreme Court did not want to hear that case. Resolution of the controversy. A resolution could be making the therapies more affordable and accessible. In a lot of the articles that I read, many people were saying that it was too expensive, so they didn't really care much for having knowledge of this research because they thought it would not be accessible to everyone. Embryonic stem cell biobanking is being put in place in order to reduce the cost and to make it more accessible to everyone. A biobank is a place that supports many types of research and where biology samples are stored for research purposes. Another resolution could be educating the public on the benefits and also explaining what happens to the remaining embryos so they know that those embryos, like I said before, don't have the potential to become a human being. Solutions for the future. A solution would be only using existing embryonic stem cells which remain from the in vitro fertilization process. This might make it less ethically controversial, but if new embryos are created just for research purposes, that could be a little bit more controversial because the remaining ones are going to be destroyed anyways, but people might see it more ethically wrong if new ones are made just for research. In conclusion, many people do believe that embryonic stem cell research is morally and ethically wrong because they do believe that these embryos have the potential to become human beings, but if they knew that these embryos were not going to have the potential to be implanted and develop into a fetus, they might not see this as a controversy. This graph here shows how many people support, oppose, or don't know where they stand with embryonic stem cell research. This is the question they were asked. As you may know, Congress is considering increasing federal funding for embryonic stem cell research. Supporters say stem cell research could lead to breakthrough cures for diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Opponents say that stem cell research crosses an ethical line by using cells from potentially viable human embryos. What do you think? Do you support or oppose increasing federal funding for embryonic stem cell research? 59% said they support it, 32% do not, and 9% are not really sure. This shows that the majority does support stem cell research, but also maybe if they had more knowledge, the other 9% can know where they stand.